this video, we'll tackle the age-old question that comes at the end of every production. Now what? Hello everyone, and welcome back to this series of videos for Theater 5113 producing the high school play. Now we have been taking a look at our usual text, which is the director's vision, and Hey Kids, Let's Put on a Show. And today we're going to be focusing on the final chapter of Hey Kids, Let's Put on a Show, which is about keeping the momentum alive. If you're ready, curtain up, let's get started. In Chapter 10 of Hey Kids, Let's Put on a Show, Bogman talks about what you do once the show is over, and you're asking yourself, now what? What happens next? In a lot of cases, your best bet is to take a break. You've just come off a very busy and hectic production schedule, and you and your students are definitely going to need a break. So take some time off to figure out what your next move is going to be and decompress. One of the things that you need to be looking at is what is going on with the rest of the school. What do you need to schedule around? Are you in the middle of a busy football season? Because believe it or not, there are some athletes out there that really do have a desire to be up on stage, but they don't want to have to choose between their sport and your show. So is there a way that you can schedule around major athletic events that are going on, depending on what season you're in, basketball, tennis, baseball, what have you? There are definitely some people that are going to have to miss because of that. And so you want to be mindful of their schedule and not make them have to choose between two things that they absolutely love. You also need to be well aware of other events that are going on at school, because you do not want to accidentally schedule your dress rehearsals the same weekend as prom. That is going to be a gigantic nightmare for everyone involved, and you're going to lose student interest if they know that it's going to compete with some of the busiest things that are going on at school. Make sure that you are looking at the schedule and taking breaks as necessary in order to make room for other things in the students' lives. You also need to be mindful of the fact that if you have a successful production, then you are going to build momentum. Once other students see what your students have done, they're going to be more interested in getting involved if they can. So sometimes you need to strike while the iron is hot. There are other ways that you can keep going without putting on a full-scale production. For instance, there are one-act plays that you can do. You could do a small one-act festival. There are 10-minute plays that you could do for a 10-minute play festival. This allows you to get a whole bunch more students involved, maybe doing more than one show. I've even been in the position before where we have done a couple of one-act plays and made it a dessert theater where we have a show, we have some desserts for the audience, and then we have another show after an intermission. So there are lots of opportunities that are on a slightly smaller scale to keep your students involved in doing drama. Also, if your state has it, you can get involved in forensic competitions. So if you have students that want to do dramatic interpretations, if they would like to recite poetry, if they would like to do a scene, if they'd like to do some improv, there are going to be some opportunities there so that you can take one weekend, go do a competition, and come home. It's a little bit lower pressure, and it does provide some scholarship opportunities for some of your students that are going to want to pursue this. Another thing you need to be thinking about is the style of the show that you're going to do next. You're going to want to change things up so that your audience isn't seeing the same thing every time. If you've just done a comedy, why not switch it up to a drama? If you've done a musical, why not do a straight play? If you have done a classic musical, maybe do something a little more modern, but keep switching things up, because not only does this keep your audience interested, but it allows your students to stretch their versatility in different types of roles. And while you are looking at those different students, then make sure that you are watching for the ones that are working hard, that are consistently showing up and have maybe gotten smaller roles. These may be the ones that you want to try out in a larger role because they have put the time in and they have earned it. And on the other hand, you can take your ones that have been giving lead roles and you can put them in ensemble roles, because a lot of times you need to be a triple threat to be a part of an ensemble. The ensemble needs to be strong and carry your supporting characters throughout the show, so you're going to need strong people there anyway. This will also help your lead actors learn to work as part of a team, which is something that is really useful in the world of theater. But once you have finished a production, the name of the game is giving yourself some room to breathe, giving your students some room to breathe, and still keeping that momentum going, maybe by finding smaller projects or by hyping up your next big project. So let's talk about some of my thoughts over what is covered in the chapter. One of the things that jumped out to me was being aware of the schedule. And speaking as someone who has been a victim of that before, my junior year of college, you had to direct a one act, and they scheduled the one act weekend the exact same week as Pledge Week. So it was really rough because not only did that cut down on the number of people who were available to audition for a show happening that week, but also my sorority was hosting Pledge Week activities that I needed to be there for. I spent a lot of time going back and forth between the two, scrambling to make sure that I had enough people cast. And it was a headache that could have easily been avoided if they had just looked at the pledge schedule. So definitely be aware of everything that is going on and try not to schedule your major productions during times when something big is going on. I also really liked the part of the chapter that talked about taking someone who has worked consistently in the theater and giving them a shot at a larger role. This is something that a director did for me once upon a time. I kept showing up and doing, all the small roles and everything, and building my way up until they felt secure enough to throw me into a lead. And that was when I discovered my abilities as a character actress. And I never would have known that had they not taken a chance and put me in a role that would kind of stretch me and test me. But on the other side of that, after having some larger roles for a while, I was put in an ensemble role, which is so useful when you are trying to learn the craft, because this particular musical that I was in, it turned out that the ensemble actually had more onstage time than the lead roles. We were constantly changing characters and doing elaborate dance numbers and changing costumes and bringing on props. And it was hectic and crazy, and we really had to be on our game. So I feel like that was just as much of a challenge as playing a lead role. So you can grow a lot just from being on an ensemble role. And that's something that a lot of younger actors need to take into account, is that they are in fact honing their craft by taking those smaller roles. One thing that you do have to watch out for in those instances, though, is that you have to deal, and this is true for any level of theater, you do have to deal with egos. There are people who are going to get their hearts broken by constantly playing lead roles and then being put in the ensemble. Some people will take that personally. So you need to be prepared to have those conversations with your cast to make them understand that those roles are just as important and can be just as challenging and just as rewarding. It's all part of just the big theater family. It's about being part of a community, and getting them to understand that is really going to go a long way in helping them mature in their abilities as an actor or actress. So there you go. That is the last video in this series for producing the high school play. Just a reminder that if you are interested in the texts that we used in this series, then they are going to be available down in the description below if you would like to check them out for yourself. I hope that you found this helpful. I am really glad that you have been here, and I hope to see you again soon, either on the stage or backstage. And scene.